So you just bought a Tesla, thinking about buying a Tesla, or maybe you're waiting for delivery, and you probably spent like $40,000 to $50,000 on the car, another couple of $1,000s in taxes and registration fees, and now you need to install a charger to charge it and enjoy one of the benefits of having an EV, which is the ability to be able to quickly and reliably charge it at home. And that also comes at a cost. So in my area, apparently it can cost up to $4,000 to install a level 2 charger like that. So even if it was half of that, $2,000, that's still a lot of money. And you've already spent a lot of money. And I'm sure you have a laundry list of accessories that you want to buy as well. So I'm an avid do-it-yourselfer, and this video is how I installed my level 2 Tesla charger. You can see over my shoulder there. And with also having the caveat of my load center or breaker box being completely full, and how I got around that. Now, this isn't for everybody. This is very dangerous, working with high amperage and voltage electricity. You need to really be safe. You need to make sure that your electricity is shut off before working with it. You need to know how to properly connect the wires and make sure everything is secure so that your house is safe. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of research that I did. I have some experience running electricity in my previous house. I'm gonna have my father come and help me because he has a lot of experience working with electricity since he was a teenager. And yeah, the more knowledge and people with knowledge you can get to help you do this, the easier it'll be. But all in all, it's not a hard job. The main factor is just doing it safely and doing it right so that your home is safe. If you don't feel comfortable doing it or taking the risk, then just hire an electrician, pay the money, and have the peace of mind. So let's get started, and I'll show you the things you need to get this job done. So let's talk about what you'll actually need for this install. The wall charger, of course. So this is about $500 from Tesla. If you use a referral code when you buy a car, you basically get this for free. And then we have Conductors. So a lot of people use Romex because it's easier to run, because you can run it through the wall as is in most places. Here's an example of Romex. It's just bundled in a cable. You see there's two conductors and a ground. So most people are using 6-gauge Romex. But if you use 6-gauge Romex, that is only rated to 55 amps. So you can only use a 50 amp breaker if you're using Romex. There are some people that I've seen, plenty of forums that say you can just round it up to 60. Not really safe, right? Because it's only rated for 55. And this is something that's going to be pulling a lot of power while your car is charging. So better safe than sorry. It's not worth saving the money or the hassle and burn your house down or something, you know? However unlikely that is. So if you're going to use Romex, you need to use 4-gauge Romex if you're going to use a 60 amp breaker, or you can use the 6-gauge on a 50 amp breaker. But there's a better option, and that's THHN wire. So THHN is an acronym that means thermoplastic, which is the insulator, has a thermoplastic insulator. The 2 H's are high heat resistance. It's rated up to 90 degrees Celsius, which is a bit higher than Romex, and the nylon coating, which is the outer jacket here. And all that to say that this handles heat much better than Romex. And this is rated up to 75 amps on the 6-gauge THHN wire, which gives you a 15 amp buffer on the 60 amp breaker. So much better off using this. The only caveat to using THHN is that it has to be run through a conduit. As you can see, these are single conductors. They're not bundled in a cable. So originally I was going to use this flexible conduit, but you can see that it snapped at the seams here just from unrolling it. I got this off of Amazon. It was half the price of the stuff they sell in hardware stores, and now I know why. So sometimes you get what you pay for. I won't be using this. I'm going to return it. So instead, I just went down to Home Depot and picked up some hard PVC conduit, which in retrospect, I do like it a lot better than the flexible stuff. It's easier to work with. These are 10-foot runs. They're about $10 a piece. I also picked up some other pieces like 4 elbows and some couplers, some female to male threaded couplers. And in case you're wondering, they will fit in your Model Y if you plan on picking some up with the Y. Just one thing, they have to go under your glove box, so I'd put them in until they get to the front seat, and then you guide them under the glove box so you're not scratching it as you push it in. Maybe put a towel or a shirt or something like that I did, so not scratch your seat. But yeah, I think this is going to turn a lot better. So a tool you might want to consider while doing this job is something like this contactless voltage tester. This one's by Klein. I got this for $19. And basically, you turn it on, you see there's a green light, and how this works is you just put it up to a wire, and it tells you if there's voltage running through it when it turns red and beeps like that. So you can see all these wires are live. You will get shocked. This ground wire, for instance, should not have current running through it. So you can see I'm touching the ground wire, and it does not have current running through it, but the wire above it does. This is the hot wires for the charger. If you're going to attempt to do this on your own, I would suggest that you turn off your main breaker so that you know that all of the panel will be off while you're doing the job, and it's just safer to do it that way. One thing to know, that these, no matter if you turn this off or not, these are the supply line from the utility company coming from the outside, so these will never be turned off unless you have a power outage. So even when you turn off your main breaker, all of this will be off, but these two very large wires, these like 2 or 3 gauge wires, will still be have current running through them. So stay away from these guys. These electrical nut spanner wrenches are actually pretty useful. You'll see I didn't have them initially. I had to use a set of pliers to tighten the lock nut, and it was a pain in the ass, so much so that I went back out and bought these. You can see they kind of work like car coilover wrenches, the same exact concept, where it grabs the protrusion on the nut, and then you're just able to spin it. They're also offset so they can get up into places. These were around $15 at Home Depot for the set, and not necessary, but definitely a nice to have. So here's my load center, and if you are lucky enough, all you will have to do is run your conductors and your ground into your load center here, and you'll have two open slots where you can throw in 60 amp breaker or whatever amperage you're using, and you'll be good to go. And your charger will work. And as you can see, every single one of the circuits in my breaker box are being used. So if you have this situation, unfortunate enough to have the situation like I do, you have 3 options really that I know of. There might be more. The first one that I was going to use is a quad pole breaker. So this is a quad pole breaker. And basically what this is, it splits 2 240 volt breakers into 2 slots. So you can see in the middle here, there's 50 that would be split into a 240, and then a 30 would be a 240, and you'd hook up the associated conductors there. So I was originally going to use this breaker, which is my dryer to 30 amp, and I was going to split it with the Tesla on this 50 amp. But I decided to go against that because I wanted this 60 amp to get the full charging of the 48 amp pole. And the company that makes my load center, Siemens, this is the max quad breaker they make is 50. So my only option is to use a 60 by itself, which I showed you before.
So the question is, how do I make room in here to do that? And the answer is tandem 120 volt breakers. So you can see here, this is a 120 volt tandem breaker. So basically it takes up one slot. You can see here, I have this run of 15 amp breakers. So what I'm going to do is I have 2 of these. So I'm going to make 4 of these breakers into 2, which then frees up 2 slots for the 60 amp breaker for the Tesla. And you can see these are CAFCI breakers, which just means they have the arc surge protection in them. And that makes them a bit more expensive. These are about $90 a piece in Home Depot, and I actually got them on Amazon for $70 a piece. So quite a bit of savings there. If you have a Siemens load center and you want these, I'll link these down below.
What plug-on neutral means is that there is a neutral here. You could say it says panel neutral, and there's a neutral bar that runs down behind the breakers. So you have your the powered blade that goes into the part here, and then there's a neutral bar that runs down the other side. So when you put this in, you put this little hook into the side, you'd clip this in, and then you'd push it forward this way, and this will catch that bar, and that will be the neutral connection. If you don't have a plug-on neutral ready load center, they also make ones that have a pigtail. So it's just a neutral wire that's coming off the back, and then you can run that wire to your neutral bar, which is usually on one of the sides of the load center box. So this is my load center. Here's the door. It's a Siemens SN series. And if it supports plug-on neutral breakers, it should say it somewhere on the door. You can see right here, it says plug-on neutral ready. Other companies might have it somewhere else, but it should say it somewhere on the door panel. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna combine 4 of these 15s into 2, and then we'll have 2 open slots. There's also the question of, should you be doing this? Some breakers explicitly say that you can have tandem breakers, and some say you can only have a max of a certain number of breakers. But since they're only 15 amp breakers, I'm not really concerned about it. They're all for like bedrooms. They're not really gonna have a strong draw, so this should be fine, but that's up to you. That was the second option, tandem breaker. Third option is to install a sub panel, which basically means that you install a sub load center. Pretty much you would basically take a 70 amp or 100 amp breaker, run that to a new box, in which you would take like some of these small breakers, move them to the sub panel, and then keep the big breakers in this box. That's another option. That's a lot more work. Sometimes you need a permit to do that legally, depending on where you live. So that's why I'm going with the tandem breakers. So let's get started. And Tesla recommends the height of the charger to be at 45 inches, which is way too low, I think. It's less than 4 feet. I don't really think that would look too great. And plus, it's low enough for my kids to reach and mess with it. So they recommend the highest for 5 feet. So we'll mount it at 5 feet. That looks a lot better to me. Let's start by mounting it there. All right, so as per the manual, these mounting holes require a 5/32 drill bit, or 4 millimeters to drill out. So I got that on my drill here, and we're just gonna drill out these 2 middle ones. Now we have the mounting holes there. All right, so then This is my original mark. The holes are about 6 inches apart, so I just marked it down here to kind of know the area that I'm in. Then I used the stud finder. I got the edge in a couple of places and then just drew a straight line with the straight edge. So I know I'm working somewhere in between here. So I'll mount the first hole, make sure it's level, and then put the second screw in. All right, so I started the first screw, which is a square 2-bit. I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit more. I'm going to grab a level. I'm going to hope that this is accurate. I'm going to level this out. All right, so let's get this other screw in here. Level enough, I guess.
Yes, see the bubble? I'm familiar with the bubble, Morty. I also dabble in precision.
That's it. All right, so now that that's mounted, we can put the connector in the top, which is just a 3/4 inch female to male threaded fitting. It just drops right in the top or the bottom, whichever one you're going to go. Then you'll just need an electrical nut to actually secure it in place. You'll have to buy that separately. There were a couple of bucks at Home Depot. I think like $3 for a pack of 4, which is all you should need, depending on how many connections you're going to have. But yeah. Then you'll just need to tighten the nut down. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I didn't have those electrical nut wrenches initially. And using the pliers and it being a pain in the ass would actually probably be to go back to the store and buy them. But you will get it done with the pliers eventually. You can also stick a flathead screwdriver against the lugs and tap it with the hammer once it starts getting hard to turn. So I didn't really measure the conduit. I kind of just put it up where I wanted it to be and then used a Sharpie to mark it at the depth of the connector there. And then we'll cut it with a pipe cutter. So I do have one of those ratcheting pipe cutters, but I have no clue where it is after I moved. So I have these manual cutters and they should work just fine. Surprisingly effective. All right. And there we go. So I need to tighten that nut down a little bit more. There it is. There's the first run. All right, so I got that tightened a little more. We got my first run here. Now we have the second one laid across the floor here. So I'm going to get that up across the ceiling here. And we're going to loosely hold it in place right now until we get the wire in. Once we map it all out with these stays. Got these off Amazon too. They don't come with screws though. But just going to use regular construction screws like this. I think I have 2-inch ones somewhere, which I'm not going to need 3-inch, so I'll use the 2-inch ones. All right, so I have this whole run all the way to this corner over here, which I'm going to measure later because we're going to come down into the top of the load center there. But I'm going to start feeding the conductors through. I've taped them off at the end here, and then I just try to start feeding them up the conduit here. So because these conductors are so thick, it's actually pretty easy to just push them up through here. as I hit that 90-degree, of course. So one of the good things about gluing your conduit after you run the line through it is that you can take it apart. So I was just feeding this up. It got a little hard and stuck on 90-degree here. So I just pulled it apart. I'm going to pull that through, put it through here, and then continue to the run. All right. So you can see I gotten it pulled all the way through. Here are my two conductors and my ground. I got this all tightened up over the door. All right, so now that you got all your wires fed through, you want to kind of bend them up into this corner, and you want to, whichever way you're coming in, you want to wrap it around the opposite way. So if you're coming in the top like I did, you want to wrap it under and into the contacts. If you're coming through the bottom, you want to wrap it up and over and through the top of the contacts. So it shows in the manual that you want to do this, especially if you're coming in through the top of the bottom. If you're coming in through the back, you're both going to go, both ones are going to go up and over. And that's just to give extra slack in the line here. And I've seen other videos where people have come just in the bottom or the top or the back and go straight into the contacts instead of wrapping it around. Not the right way to do it. There's a reason why they have extra slack in the wire here. They also provide a zip tie. There's a loop behind here that you're going to put that zip thread to secure these wires down. And then this extra slack gives it some more space. So make sure you're following the manual and not just a YouTube video. So I have these wire strippers. Unfortunately, it stops at 10 gauge, so I can't actually strip the wire with it, but I can use this blade to cut these wires, which are pretty thick. Normal pliers aren't going to cut through it. So I marked them there with that marker. Okay. All right, now that I got them cut, I went ahead and measured exactly 1/2 inch of this wire to strip off, just to use as like a template. So by the way, an easy way to see how much of the wire you need to strip off, there's actually a gauge right here. You can see this says strip length with a picture of a wire. And you can just put it up to this and mark here and or cut here to make it easy. And I'll mark these. Doesn't have to be exact, but you want to get close. Now wire strippers would come in real handy here, but if you don't have wire strippers, you can just use a razor blade. Just kind of push it into the jacket. Be sure not to push too hard. It's probably not going to cut these wires. They're pretty thick, but you don't want to do that. And try to stay in the same groove that you made. All right. Get yourself a pair of pliers. See if you can work that off. And there we go. All the wires are intact. Easy. All right, so I got that already. Got all 3 stripped. And here's that loop that I was talking about before. This is where you're going to put the zip tie that they supply in the kit. Just go ahead and feed that through before we connect the wires. Of course, they made it bend the opposite way for some reason to make it extra hard to get in there. Then you can just start that. Don't tighten it yet, just so you have it closed and it's not going anywhere. So the terminal screws will need to be backed off a little bit to get the wires in there, and just use that 4mm hex bit they include in the kit. You can see here the symbols ground, L2, L1. These don't matter. They're both hot. And then the ground will go on the end furthest on the left side. Make sure you put them in the right spot.
You'll see it's peeking out the top a bit there. Just make sure your screw is actually coming in contact with the wire itself, not the plastic. And then you're gonna go ahead and just tighten this down until it's snug. And then we're gonna have to torque it. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. All right, so let's go a little farther actually. That's snug, it's not going anywhere. All right, let's go with the second one. So this one's coming in second, so we'll put that through into this slot. And tighten that one down. Snug. Okay. I probably could have cut that down a little more. Oh, I can pull it up a little more here. And we'll get it all cinched down with the zip tie as well. All right, and then we have the last one here. Open that, contact up a bit. Stick that in there on top of all these. All right. So hot ground. So now we can push this all in here, and realistically I probably could have made these a little bit shorter, but I think it's fine. Start cinching this down. You just want it to be flush. I did have this little Eastwood zip tie cincher. Not necessary, but pretty cool. It didn't even, I cut it flush, but it didn't even tighten it much more, or at all, actually. But all right, that's it. So now you want to torque the contacts down to 50 inch-pounds is what the manual says, and it also says it on the back here, I believe. And what I'm going to use for that is this THHN torque wrench. You can see I have it set to 50. Usually people use a torque screwdriver for electrical applications. I don't have one. I have this because I used it for working on car engines. But same difference, 50 inch-pounds is 50 inch-pounds. Whatever you need to do. And this is just to make sure the wires are secure and don't back out of this contact. So you see right there, it snapped. That means we're at 50 inch-pounds. It's torqued down properly. And by the way, the wire on the other end in the box is not hooked up to the box yet, so that's why I'm touching these wires, or else I wouldn't be without checking. There we go. Clicked, 50 inch-pounds. That's secured. And the last one. Click, 50 inch-pounds. All right, that's it. Here's a top-down view. You can see all the contacts are making contact and secure. So, all All right, so once you have everything wired up and torqued down, you can go ahead and put the business end of this on. It does come with these set screws. You can see they're only about like 4 or 5 threads deep, so you don't need a power tool to get these in. Just use the hex bit that they provided with a screwdriver. And what we're gonna do is line this up, push it straight on. I have the cable coiled around my shoulder here. And that's it, man. You're in business. Once you get the electricity out. And that's it. So you have a screwdriver with that bit it came with. And we're just gonna get one of these screws in. There's 4 altogether. One on each corner, top and bottom. Make sure we're in there. We're not in there. You get these set screws. I'm gonna get them lined up. There we go. You'll feel it drop in once it gets to where it's supposed to be. Might have to push on a little bit. That's why it might have been a good idea to mount this actually on a piece of wood so it didn't get countersunk into the wall, but alright, so that's snug. Let's get the one on the bottom. All right, so I got all of those bolts in. You can see I did have a little trouble with this last one. What I suggest you do is not tighten them all the way, because this one was a little off. I had to kind of like manipulate this a bit to get it to pop in, probably because the screws are like, you know, through the middle, so they're kind of like warping the plastic on both sides up a little bit. So I just kind of like push down and push to the side, and then finally it popped in. But yeah, there it is. Wall part is installed. Now we just have to hook it up to something. All right, so we're almost done here with this. And how we're gonna put this into the walls, we're gonna run a line down and then into this, what's called a conduit body. It's basically just a gang box, small gang box for conduit. So the conduit will go in through the top here, and then this part will go into the wall. And then I got this flexible tube that will plug into the back of this, and then I'll bend it down to go into the top of the knockout there. Which, what's cool about this, I mean, it's expensive for what it is. It was like 10 bucks, 11 bucks, but you can take this off, and then that can go right into the knockout, and then you can just throw a nut on there and you're done. So that's how I'm going to get it into the box. I'm gonna cut out a square out here to work, make a hole in the middle of the square, and then connect these through that square and patch around it. So I had my father come by to help me with the electrical work, since he's been doing it since he was a teenager. Thought he shocked himself here for a second. What was that? Did you get shocked?
No, it's my finger. What do you call actually sent a sensation. You can't get shocked. It's not.
I know, but it looked like you got shocked. You jumped.
No, because I know, because I felt the sensation. It's just a natural reflex.
Anyway, you can see that we had already installed one of the tandem breakers. I just wanted to make sure it went smoothly before I recorded anything. And now we're installing the second one. You can see we pulled one of the wires off of the other single breakers. So now you can see we're inserting that hot wire into the first position of the tandem breaker. The terminal screws are square 2 bits or screwdriver. You can see as that fancy Klein screwdriver there. Also notice that we're moving the leads, the hot conductors, from the bottom up, and that's to not put mechanical tension on the wire by stretching them down. You'll want to move them up so that they remain having slack. And here he was talking about how it's much easier to put torque on the terminal screw with the breaker out rather than inserting the breaker first and then inserting the wires and torquing the screws, apparently, which some people do. It's also just safer because it's not connected to the panel, which should be off, but some people work with the live panel. Truth be told, this is a live panel right now, so definitely smart to have it off. Also, make sure that your actual breaker is off when you insert it. Make sure it's off when you take it off. Take the old one off. Just be really safe. The safest thing to do is just to turn the whole panel off, which I still recommend you do. So these are pretty simple to install. You put the clip into the back catch there and then push it towards the center. Sometimes it's hard to push, especially these ones with the plug on neutral, and you see he used the butt of the screwdriver to actually help him get it clicked in there. You'll hear a loud click when it seats, and you'll see that it's flush. So when you first turn on these CAF-CI breakers, you'll see that these little orange lights come on at first, but then they will shut off. It's just like a test sequence, I guess. If the surge arc protection actually trips, then the lights will stay on. Next, we're using an oscillating saw to cut out the drywall where we're going to work in, right above the load center. Because this is right above the load center, you want to make sure that you aren't cutting too deep and won't sever any wires or anything like that. If you don't have a saw, you can also use a utility knife, will work great. So, sorry, a bit of a jump here, but I'll explain exactly what we did. You can see we have the wires fed down through the conduit body. We're now feeding them back through the hole in the conduit body into the flexible tubing that's coming out of the box there. You can see where it is with the nut, and the wire just popped through. And now we're just pulling the wire the rest of the way through to get it secured in the conduit body. And then we will trim the wires and run it to the spot where we need it to be in the panel box. Now that the conductors are through the conduit body, there's a force going back up through the conduit, and the conduit started falling apart a little bit because I hadn't glued it yet. So this is the time where I went back up to glue it. Just be sure if you glue it after that you're only getting the glue on the outside of the PVC, not the inside, because it could react with the jacket of the wire. So here you can see we inserted a long thin strip of plywood behind the wall, and now we use that plywood to mount that same piece of drywall that we pulled out. You can see we cut a little square out of the corner there to let the conduit go through. Now that that's through, we start routing the wires down to the slot where the 60 amp breaker will be. We will have to pull the ground wire out at this point because the ground bar is actually on the other side of the box, which we decided to route it down all the way under the panel and back up to the ground bar because the other side of the box there is pretty busy. That just seemed like a better route to go. Now he's stripping the conductors the same way I did it before with the razor. There's actually a strip gauge on the side of the breaker itself if you need to know how much to strip off. Double checking that the strip length is good and that the terminal will be fully contacted with the conductor once we torque it down. The terminal screws on the 60 amp breaker are actually flathead screws, not square 2-bit. So he actually had this Craftsman screwdriver in his pocket because that's what he used to pop out the pop out in the top of the breaker box. But we noticed when we tried to torque them down at the end that the Craftsman screwdriver kept popping out, and that's because the blade wasn't wide enough. So make sure you have a screwdriver, if you have the flat head terminal screws, that is wide enough to actually torque these down properly. He did have the right screwdriver with him to get these torqued down properly. So after we snugged them up, we were able to torque them down all the way with, he has like the whole set of Klein screwdrivers, which are like insulated screwdrivers meant for electric work. And it was the right size flathead for this terminal screw. You might want to invest in a set of those if you plan on doing future electric work, but they are pretty expensive.
This thing off.
You want the screwdriver butt?
It's 2 of them went on.
Huh?
It's because 2 of them went on.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Hold on.
Well, I'm seeing red lights. I'm seeing green lights. I think it's good to go.
Whoa.
Yeah. Green light. Let's see if it actually charges the car. This should be enough.
Everything's good? That came up all green and stuff?
Open the door. That's a good sign. You got the LED scrolling down. So I plugged the charger in for the first time, and you can see that we're pulling the full 80% of that 60 amps, which is the 48 amps, at 237 volts. So looks good. Okay, so here it is all finished. We probably could have cut these wires a little more, but they're fine the way they are. See that we came down with the conduit, went into this conduit body, and they got a piece of flexible 3/4 inch conduit in which we routed from the back of this box, dips down and exits there. You can see where the conduit is with the nut. That pulls out of here. We routed the ground down around the bottom and up to the ground bar here. So you can see that's secure on the ground bar. And then the 2 hots are coming down into the 60 amp breaker. You can see the ones that we installed here. So this is the 2 tandem breakers that we combine these 4 hots into. These are all bedrooms. So now they're on 2 breakers, and we freed up this spot here, and this is just a Tesla now. And then I'll just have to patch around here. So what we did here is basically, like you saw, we cut this out with an oscillating saw, cut the rest of it out with the utility knife very carefully, because all of my utility wires are basically going up through here. They're mounted to a 2x4 behind the wall here and then getting dispersed into the house. We actually cut into the wall right next to that. So that was a lucky, I guess. And then to fix it, we cut a strip of plywood that is lined up behind the wall here. You can see the 2 screws where we mounted the plywood. Then that square, we cut off the corner of the square to allow the conduit to come out, and then secured that same piece of drywall that we cut out back into the wall. And then that piece of plywood also spans up to where I have the strap mounted. I don't want to put a screw through this side because, like I said, all of the wires are running up that side. So what I'm going to do is get one of those metal straps. I got these in the mail today. These are 1 1/4 inch one hole straps. It's just a mounting hole on one side. And the reason why I got 1 1/4 inch, even though I used 3/4 inch tubing, is because the outer diameter of the female part of the conduit body is 1 1/4 inches. So you can see this fits perfectly around the female part of the conduit body, and it lines up right where the plywood is that I used to mount that piece of drywall. So we're just gonna throw a screw right through the hole. I'll probably use a washer because that hole's kind of big, and it should be very secure. And don't have to worry about it pulling off the wall or anything like that. And there we go. This isn't going anywhere now. It's captured on top of here. Screw on one side. I also used a washer because the hole was kind of big. And now this is solid. So one thing I forgot to mention, because I was so excited to plug it in for the first time, was that you might want to connect the wall charger to Wi-Fi. Right now, I think the only real benefit of doing so is so you get over-the-air updates for the charger. I'm sure in the future they'll have other features available. I think there's some kind of feature you can see your power usage and stuff like that. But you have that in the Tesla app too, so that's not really too useful. But if you do want to connect it, the instructions are in the manual actually. You'll see on the front of the manual here, you'll have the network name and the password to the network listed there. And then on the last steps of the instructions, this is that sticker you'll see. So you'll have to put it into the Wi-Fi broadcast mode, which you can do by holding the button on the charger handle for a certain number of seconds until you see the lights start blinking on the charger. Or the easiest way to do it is just to cycle the power at the circuit breaker. So turn it off, turn it back on, and then you'll see that light blink. It gives you 15 minutes to accomplish this. And then that's what that sticker looks like on the front. So basically on your phone, you're gonna find that Wi-Fi network that your Tesla charge is broadcasting. You're gonna use those credentials on the front of your manual to access that Wi-Fi network. And then once you're on that Wi-Fi network, you're going to go to the local network address. And it's kind of like if you ever change the password on a router or something like that. It's basically the same idea. You're going to go to the local network address that's going to give you access to a dashboard. And then in that dashboard is where you're going to set everything up. You're going to find your Wi-Fi network and hook up the Wi-Fi network with the password and everything. And then after you do that, the charger will be connected. And then after you set it up, if you ever need to access the dashboard again, you can just go through the same steps here. So don't throw this out, or take a picture of the Wi-Fi network and the credentials on the front here and save it on your phone or something, so that you have it in the future if you ever need to, change your Wi-Fi password or something like that. And that's it. That's how I installed my Tesla wall charger. Total, just for the actual supplies to install the charger, not including the tools, was just under $1,000, about $940. So you're gonna have to spend about $1,000 just to get the supplies for the charger, let alone the installation. So you can see why it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. If you have any questions about the installations, post them in the comments below. If you have any critiques, or you think I did something wrong, or anything like that, post it in the comments below. I'd love to hear or improve something that I didn't do the right way. Everything I used in the video will be linked in the description below. They'll either be the things I used or substitutions for stuff like tools, because some of the tools I already had, because I've been collecting tools for 20 years or so. But I'll have some substitutions on there if that's the case. Some will be affiliate links that will support the channel. It's no extra cost to you. So if you found this video helpful at all and you want to use those links, that would be great. Also, if you haven't bought your Tesla yet, I'll put my referral code down in the description, and that will get you $250 off the purchase of your Tesla, plus a 3-month trial subscription of the full self-driving beta. It used to be $500, like when I bought my car in September. But it looks like since they've been slashing the prices pretty aggressively, they also slashed the referral code. But $250 is $250. It's basically half off of the wall charger. So if you can use anyone's referral code, mine will be below, but there's a lot of people giving out their referral code. So just so you know, I'll also try to make a PDF with the list of all the supplies you'll need, so you can actually take that to the store if there's like stuff you need to get from Home Depot or whatever, if you're not going to order it online. If you found this video useful, please like to help spread it around. Subscribe. I have other ideas for more videos that I'm going to do with the Y, so you can be notified about those. And if you do use my video to help you install your wall charger, let me know how it went down in the comments as well. I'd love to hear that I'm actually helping someone accomplish this and not just talking into the void. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.